attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome to the May edition of the Marks Group GoldMine Tips and Tricks webinars. We put on these tips and tricks webinars once a month. You can always visit our tips and tricks from ages past by going to marksgroup.net. So, after the lovely long holiday weekend, what are we talking about today? Let's see if we can remind ourselves. We're going to set the default username for GoldMine. How many of you start up your GoldMine to see the wrong username in that box? I'm going to show you how to fix that. It's going to be lovely. We're going to talk about max records. A little weird thing with GoldMine in the world of computers. I'm going to show you why we have to think about things like max records and how we can set those numbers and expect them to behave appropriately. And if we have some time, we're going to look at cleaning up records. I know that a lot of my clients are looking to really start working hard all summer long, and they want to just take a minute and figure out of their database who is garbage, who should we delete. I'm going to show you some easy ways to kind of figure that out and maybe take care of that. So with no further ado, let's jump right into some GoldMine. We're going to set our default username. Now, the way we do this, well, I guess there's a couple ways. Wrong window as usual. Okay, so to set the default username, let me go ahead and kind of shrink this down a little bit so I can get my desktop. Bear with me, everybody. Yikes. Come on, baby. Uh-oh. I'm having Explorer issues. Can you believe it? Really, guys? Wow. Yeah, I know, thrilling. Just bear with me, guys. Just one moment. I swear. Amazing things are to follow. Gosh. Are you kidding me? Might not be able to show you default username today. The idea is to actually modify your GoldMine shortcut, which for whatever reason I can't show you at the moment. gracious. All right, so the idea is, and you can play along at home. I can show you in a notepad. That's the best I can do today, guys. I'm sorry. Basically, you want to modify your GoldMine shortcut. So what you want to do is you want to find your GoldMine shortcut on your desktop. You want to right-click on it and select Properties. And in that shortcut, there's going to be a target box. And in that target box, it's going to end with gmw.exe, which is the actual program name for GoldMine. Now, what we have to do to get our username to always show in our login box is we have to modify what's in the target box. That's actually called a text box. And we need to add a /u : and then your username. So all I have to do is I'm going to right-click on my GoldMine shortcut. I'm going to go to Properties. I'm going to modify my target to include, after what's already there, a /u : username. And all that is all together. There's no spaces in that whatsoever. And also keep in mind or mark the fact that there is a space after that gmw.exe and before your /u. And for those of you that want to go advanced, we can also pass the password with a /p : and then password, whatever your password happens to be. I don't see a lot of people use this. A lot of people just seem to be happy enough to get their own username to appear in that login box. All right, let's go ahead and see if we can't move on. Max records. Okay, what do I mean when I talk about max records? Okay, here's the deal. When you're working with GoldMine, it's a bit unique in the world of applications because it's a database application. What I'm trying to get at is that when you look at a list of things in GoldMine, whether that be a list of history or a list of contacts, anytime you see a list in GoldMine, it doesn't. Now you might have noticed that these list scroll bars don't seem to really behave like the rest of the world, by which I mean they don't ever seem to really draw themselves appropriately small or large to reflect how big the list is that you're working within. And you'll also notice that when you get to the bottom of a list, that sometimes it'll like maybe load a bunch of new records and the scroll bar will snap back and forth. The reason for that is that GoldMine could be looking at 10 records or a million records. It does not waste time trying to figure out how long or how big it should draw its scroll bar. It just doesn't even care about it. What I'm really trying to get at is that when we talk about and when we deal with lists of stuff in GoldMine, we can fine-tune how many records are going to be shown in that list. Let me show you how to do that. We're going to right-click within any list, go to Options, and you'll see here there's a maximum number of records to show. I think that defaults to 1,000, and certainly you can change that. Now, why you'd want to change this, a couple of reasons. First biggest reason is probably performance, is that if your GoldMine is performing extremely poorly, you can try setting this record down a bit. So maybe take it from 1,000 to maybe 500-ish or so. And again, that just controls the contents of this list. Let me double check that. Okay, so again, if your GoldMine's running really slow, you might want to set that number down. I'm going to show you another number that deals with max records. That's going to be in Tools, Configure, System Settings. This is where a lot of the sharp tools are here. You might not have access to this, but just to show you, if you go here and then go to your display window, these are the two most important max records numbers in GoldMine. If you see here, the first one is the maximum record shown in the search center, activity list, contact list, and contact record tabs. I have mine set to $2,000. I'm not sure what the default is, but this number will have a significant impact on the performance of your GoldMine. If you set this higher, GoldMine will be slower. If you set it lower, GoldMine will be faster. Of course, the caveat is that if I set this low, like if I set this to, say, 10, if I wanted to go super fast, I'm only going to be able to look at 10 records in my contact search center at any given time. So you might want to just set that up a little bit. Where this really impacts is that when people start to run like large lists or try to run large filters. I have a lot of my clients that actually have to take this down to about 5,000 or so. And you'll see the difference in your GoldMine performance is immediate and dramatic. I'm not sure why, but your GoldMine will start faster and it will search faster. And of course, again, the trade-off there is that the less records you set this to will be the less records you have the ability to handle in GoldMine. Of course, you can keep on refreshing the search center or the list view by clicking down on the scroll bar, but just to be aware of that. The other number here is maximum number of records to show an SQL query. This will also impact GoldMine performance, and come to think of it, I think it actually has to do with the amount of memory perhaps that GoldMine is locking or loading. This number, and again, you want to be careful about how you set this. You want to understand what's happening when you set this, because if you're running any large lists out of your SQL query window, this will definitely impact that. You see here that mine's the 20,000. Oh good, the garbage man's here. Bear with me. I live in Seattle. We have 4 garbage men. We have the garbage, the recyclables, the other recyclables, and the compost. It's a fun time for everyone. Okay, so the maximum number of records to show in the query window, again, this will impact how many records are available to you if you go to your SQL query window here in the filters and groups. And again, it's tools, configure, system settings. Now, setting this down in order to get good GoldMine performance is a regular thing that I see in the field. What you just want to be mindful of is that if you ever have to run a large list, you have to be mindful to go back into this window and set this number high, and then do what you need to do, and then set the number low and be done with it. And again, this is the system settings. So when you change these things, they're changed for all users. And if you don't have master rights, you will not be able to even get here. And a couple other things to our tip, or my tip rather, that I posted last month. This is where you would install or uninstall Universal Search. You would use this button right here, this advanced tab. Not anything really to do with configuring or screwing around with this. You either just install it or uninstall it. It works pretty good, unless of course you're on a lab PC with a wrong version of SQL. Oh, excuse me. Scraping pollen off of my car this morning, if you can believe it. Okay, let's move right on to cleaning up GoldMine records. In our line of business and the consultant business, it seems to me that the summertime months, the months between Memorial Day and the other holiday that I can't remember at the moment, seems to be very busy, and people always want to prep their GoldMine databases to kind of anticipate or be able to actually easily add records and not have too much garbage in the way. Everyone has garbage in their GoldMine, right? Right? Everyone has records that are like 5, 10, 15, 20 years old that maybe don't have emails, maybe don't have contact types, maybe don't have contact names even, or phone numbers, things like that. How do we start to look for some of those missing things? So basically, when we think about cleaning up GoldMine, we're going to look at people who are missing things, right? We want to know, well, man, if this guy doesn't even have a phone number or an email, what do I care, right? What am I doing with him? So we're going to use the ultra mega super fabulous search center, thusly, and we're just going to remind ourselves that we can turn our search center into an Uber search center by clicking these plus buttons here. And that will allow us to add levels to our search. So again, this is why you want to be mindful of your max records in your system settings here, this first number, which deals with the search center. So to wit, if I'm going to run a list now, I'm going to look at everyone who maybe does not have an account manager. That list could be 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, could be whatever. You want to make sure that this number is at least as much or greater than the list you're expecting to work with at the moment. Okay, so let's look at our GoldMine record. Let's ask ourselves, what would constitute a bad record? Well, anyone that doesn't have a contact name is probably bad. Anyone that does not have a company name could also be bad. We want to look at phone. We want to look at email. So let's start running some lists. Not there. Search center. Wow. Take a breath. Whew. Long weekend. Okay, so I want to look at where my contact is not equal to, but is empty. Tell me I don't have any records in here with an empty contact. Are you kidding me? There we go. So this is the idea. You're going to use your search center. You're going to find the people that don't belong or the people that you want to get out of your GoldMine. And the idea here is to actually check your records and delete them using the Delete Records wizard. I don't often talk about deleting records in these webinars because deleting in GoldMine is permanent. It is forever. There's no undo. So when I delete a GoldMine record, for example, if I delete this record, not Corey, I wouldn't do that to Corey. If I delete this UPS record here, just by clicking that red X there, that record is gone. It is gone forever. And unless I have a backup of my database, either from yesterday or from 10 years ago or from wherever, I'll never be able to recover that record. So again, keep in mind, deleting is forever. So when we talk about deleting a bunch of records at once, if you don't have the ability to make a backup of your SQL database, of the actual GoldMine database, then you want to reach out to your IT department and make sure that there is at least a backup procedure in place, that there was, say, a backup done last night, so to speak. So as long as we're comfortable with the fact that backups are taking place, what we do here, and again, we're going to look for things like contact is empty. Maybe we're also going to look for, and all I'm doing to navigate through all my E's here to find the email is just typing the E key. And that happens with every Windows list view like this. A handy little tip. And email is empty. And maybe we want to look at phone. And again, I'm just going to cycle through my P's. My P's and my Q's. And phone 1 is empty. So you get the idea that we can actually really effectively list bad records out of GoldMine. Now, what do we do when we find a bunch of bad records? Let's see if we can't get a bunch of bad records to look at, or a bunch of records to look at. Did you know the percent sign is a wild card here. So if I search for contact is equal to a percent sign, I was saying, oh lordy Lou. Let's do this. Oh my goodness. Wow, at least percent used to be. At any rate, I digress. Let's get a bunch of records. Let's say where contact is not empty, just so we can look at a bunch of things here. Okay, so once you have your list of records that you want to hose out, how do you do it? The first thing you have to do is you have to take the records in your search center and you have to make them into a filter or a group. And that just is a fancy way of saying you're going to save your search, which you would do here. Now, the other thing that we can do is we can right-click here and we can tag all. Tagging is just clicking the little X here, or the little X, the little box here, and that works just as you might expect it to. You can always right-click and you can tag all. Very good. Now, when you're super ultra sure that you want to delete these records, and I mean that you've really thought about it, you've looked at a couple of records, you've taken a walk from your desk and had a long walk down by the beach and reflected upon life and its meaning, and then come back and decide you still want to delete these records, you're going to do it from here, Tools, Data Management, Delete Records. Oh yeah, we know. And you might get this little alert. Remember these alerts when you first logged into GoldMine? Just hit OK. That's fine. Okay, so what we want to do here is delete all filtered in parentheses. It should be emblazoned on a mountaintop and 30 letters 30 foot high. Now, when you tag records in the search center, that becomes what's known as an active contact filter. So that is what you're going to see here. Just keep in mind that when you use the delete records wizard, the default position is all contact records, if you can believe it. Oh yeah, don't go there. So again, we want to use our tagged records or the active contact filter. And then when we delete records, we can delete or not delete certain things about them. If you truly don't care about this record, these records at all, just check all these boxes. And just to make sure that you understand you're about to explode the world, GoldMine wants you to type in delete all contact records. And not even that, it wants you to have it in the same case as up here. So capital D and delete, all in caps, contact with a capital C, and records with a capital R. And then your next button unlocks. Here, just leave the synchronized deletions alone. I'll leave that checked, that's fine. Then you can now finish out the wizard. Once you do that, GoldMine will run through and delete all those records. Depending on how many records you had listed, could take 30 seconds, could take 20 minutes. Shouldn't take the rest of the day, let's hope. We are just about out of time. I'd love to hear what you guys would like to see as far as the next batch of tips and tricks. So please feel free to reach out to me at justin@marksgroup.net. Thanks so much for showing up and have a beautiful rest of your day.